Hello, James Andrew here, recording on Cheap SMTG. We're going to be recording a format I've never recorded before today. We're going to be doing some vintage. So this is Vintage Storm that we're going to be playing. It is one of the most powerful decks in Vintage, and therefore one of the most powerful decks in Magic. Playing pretty much all of the most broken cards ever printed. We get to play with Necropotence, Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus, and really maximise all of these cards. So for people who don't know how a Storm deck works, it's basically made up of mana acceleration and card draw. So we're looking to play Rituals and Artifact mana to accelerate us into playing a lot of spells on one turn. To draw those spells, we're going to use Necropotence, Yawgmoth's Bargain to pay life to draw cards, or we also have a lot of draw 7s such as Wheel of Fortune or Time Twister. And probably the most important card to go off with is Yawgmoth's Will. Lets you just play cards from your graveyard for the rest of the turn, which is obviously insane if you can go like play a couple of rituals, play Yawgmoth's Will, you can then replay those rituals, you're building your storm count, you're making mana. And then in the end you can win with Tendrils of Agony as your win condition. So in a deck like this, there's actually very few flexible slots. I should mention, by the way, people who don't play a lot of Vintage probably notice we're playing 13 lands. Seems ridiculously low, but we have all the Moxen obviously create mana for 0 mana cost, as well as Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond, Black Lotus, Mana Crypt, and got Mana Vault and Solving as well. So that's why we can get away with playing so few lands, as well as cantrips, of course. So there are very few flexible slots in a deck like this. One of them is filled in this deck with Hurkyl's Recall. It's basically a hedge against the Shops matchup. Some lists, because since Lodestone Golem's been banned, there's been less shops around, but there still is quite a lot. And for that reason I like having this card as a shooter target. Some decks have been cutting it completely. I like having it as a one-off in the main deck. I think there's still enough shops, and this is really your only chance against shops. Basically have to win on turn 1 on the play before they can play anything, or you need to find a Hurkyl's Recall. So I'd like having that second option in game 1. Having said that, it's still a bad matchup, but it probably makes game 1 from like a 5% win rate to maybe a 25% win rate, and that's actually a pretty big deal. So another flexible slot, we have Defense Grid, which is just insane against any blue deck playing counter spells, basically, because paying an extra 3 mana for most of those decks isn't realistic until very late in the game, by which stage you hope to have killed them anyway. So another flexible area is the discard spells. I think for Duress is pretty standard, and then there's kind of 2 more, and I've gone for 1 each of Thoughtseize and Cabal Therapy. I basically think that Cabal Therapy is a better card because you get to, like, if they have multiple Force of Wills, it's pretty insane. And also there's often very few cards you care about if you think you're going to go off next turn. So, like, even if you're going to go off the same turn, like, quite often it's like, I can win as long as they can't play Force of Will. So getting to Cabal Therapy name Force of Will is kind of equivalent to duressing, but if they have 2 Force of Wills, then you get to win anyway. And I mean, because these discard spells, they're really not there as like the sort of value hand, so your opponent down sort of cards. It's much more force through your combo, take away that one piece of interaction, and I think Cabal Therapy is pretty good for that. Having said that, when you don't know your opponent's hand, or say you draw 2 of them, you don't know your opponent's hand, it can be pretty clunky. So I like having like 1 more way to know my opponent's hand with some value, like Thoughtseize, and then just for 1 Cabal Therapy. I mean, it's a pretty minor point, but played the deck a lot, and I've that's the sort of tuned version that I've arrived at. I know a lot of people have different opinions on it, but. And the other point is against Thoughtseize that sometimes life does matter if it's like how much can I Yawgmoth's Bargain for or Necro for against, and if you're paying a bunch of attacks and probes and shock and fetch lands, so you're going to be doing yourself some damage already. And the final sort of flexible card I think is Chain of Vapor. So this is in many ways like a pretty bad card. It doesn't really do much to help you go off. But there are some like pretty problematic permanents that people can have. Like there's like, for example, the sort of white trash, it's sometimes called, deck, which plays like Thalia's main deck. Or that sort of thing, which you have a variety of permanents which can just stop you going off at any point at all, unless you can bounce them. Also like ley lines and things, so I like having this a one-off tutor target in the main deck. Just so you're not completely dead to those effects. And the rest of the deck is really pretty stock. But it's, yeah, say a very, very powerful deck. So just looking through the sideboard, we've got 3 more Hurkyl's Recall for the Shops matchup, obviously, and the 4 of Ancient Tomb also come in there, as we're against any other sort of mana denial strategy with Wastelands and Strip Mines. Then have the 1 of Annul, which is just a really nice flexible card, good against like Belcher, for example, and yeah, also fine against Shops, and yeah, just a nice flexible counterspell. We've got 2 more defense grids for the blue matchups, and we have some Dreadshade here, and a 1 of Empty the Warrens in case we need another win condition. So unfortunately, Vintage dailies, as I'm in Britain, happen in the middle of the night, so I'm not going to be playing one of them. I'm going to be playing a series of 2-mans, but hopefully it'll feel somewhat like a daily. So I'll see you back for the first round.